What's going on, guys? My name's Dylan and welcome to another episode of Garage 13. In this week's episode, we'll be working on improving the cooling of the RB25. So the engine's about 20 years old, so it's best to replace some of the cooling products, and it's easiest to do that when the engine's out. So I got right here a new water pump, oil pump, and thermostat. So when installing the oil pump, you're just going to slide it right over this crank collar right here, and it does not come with a gasket, so you will have to order that separately. This is the N1 version developed by Nismo. I ordered it from the Nismo shop online for $192. And what it does is it increases the cooling efficiency of the oil flow in a high temperature situation. So if you're running a car very hard on a track, it's going to help improve that. So before we get started, we're going to want to make sure we get all the old gasket off the block. I'm just using a wire brush to make sure you don't get any leaks in the future. So once you're all done removing the gasket off, you're just going to want to go ahead and then put the new gasket on. And there's only really one way to put it. It's got the holes where the oil goes in and out, and it has little spots where it can slide on and it'll stay on for you. So the oil goes in right here and right here. So the tool you're going to need for this is just a 10mm socket. And when sliding it on, you got to make sure that the gear, you can see it has notches, and this is what causes the gears to move and the oil to flow. So you have to match it up with the notches on the crank collar. So when installing the oil pump, there's 4 different bolt sizes, different lengths. There's one of these, 2 of these, and 4 of these. So it's 10 bolts in total, and they're all 10mm head. And when installing these bolts, you're going to torque it to 10 to 12 Newton meters. Alright, now that we're done installing the oil pump, we're going to go ahead and move on to installing the water pump. And this one I just ordered online from Phase 2 Motor Trends. This is just an aftermarket version of the water pump. And what this does is just makes the coolant flow in the engine. And I got it online for $58. So when installing the water pump, what I do is I line up the gasket and I just grab one of the bolts and I just push it through so the gasket lines up right with it, and then I partially thread it in just to hold it in place a little bit. Then I just grab a bolt for the other side and make sure it's lined up, and then thread it partially and it'll hold itself so you can put in the other bolts. And the bolts for this, there are 3 different head sizes. There's a 10 millimeter, 12 millimeter, and a 14 millimeter. Alright, now that I got the water pump installed done, that was pretty easy. We're going to move on to the thermostat now. And again, this is just the same thermostat as a Z32, so you can buy it at a local parts store. And for installing this, all I use is a red RTV gasket maker, which you can also buy at a local parts store. I think it's about $5 or $6. Before we get started on installing the thermostat, I just want to tell you the torque specs for the water pump bolts. For the M6, it's going to be 4.6 to 6.1 foot-pounds. For these M8 bolts, it is 11.8 to 15.5 foot-pounds. And these large M10 bolts, they're 23.2 to 31.1 foot-pounds. Now let's get started on the thermostat. A little something about the thermostat is it only opens up the coolant flow to the engine block once it hits a certain temperature. This part in particular opens up at 170 degrees Fahrenheit. They do make colder ones on the market, but this is just readily available, so we can buy it at any time. And when installing the thermostat, it has this little bleeder valve, I guess, and you want to have it pointed directly facing up, and you just place it in that position. You just want to have it lined up as straight as possible, and then you're going to get the coolant spout, I guess, and you're just going to line the gasket all around here, including around the bolts, so it gets a good seal. And then you just place it on there and thread it in, and it'll be perfectly sealed. So when applying the red gasket to the spout, you're just going to want to get a nice bead, but you don't want to have too much, otherwise it'll overflow and just be excess. And you're going to want to get it good all the way around where the bolt lines up, just so you have a nice seal. You don't want any coolant leaks in the future because it is a high pressure point. It doesn't have to be perfect, you can always spread it. That's what I usually do. I don't know if it's safe for your skin, so you probably shouldn't try this. Alright, after you do that, you're just going to line it up, get your bolts ready. Because once you hit it, it is hitting gasket on the block. You can see it come out a little bit. Get that bolt lined up. There we go. Might have to rotate it a bit to get all the bolts lined up. Alright, when installing the thermostat, you're going to want to tighten these bolts to 12 to 15 foot-pounds. And that pretty much just wraps up the thermostat install. It's pretty straightforward. You just let that gasket set overnight, it'll harden. And the water pump and the oil pump, they look really good. It really freshens up the engine. You can still see the rust here, but I mean, it's fine. It really goes well with the engine block paint, I think. So that wraps up this week's episode. And please leave a comment below telling if you prefer this style of video over the other style, or if you just want to say what's up. As far as next week's video, I'll be working on the head and getting it back on the engine block. I'll also be getting the intake and the exhaust manifold back on, as well as new gaskets from the rebuild kit. And the week after that, I hope to be doing a test fit in the engine bay. That's gonna be it. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and share the video if you like it. Peace.